Action can speak louder than words. But if a fist is able to shatter a planet, what's the deeper meaning behind it? Good evening everyone and welcome back to Nerd Pain Rant, series in which I try to make a creative living out of my 2 degrees in criminology. Today we are going to talk about a show that was so impactful that was able to inspire generations since its release. Monumental and peerless. Today we're talking of course about Dragon Ball. But before we continue, if you want to support my need for external validation, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Dragon Ball was the first collection that I completed, and I did cry when it ended. Seeing Goku leaving for Training Goo was like parting ways from an old friend. Now, was that too much? Probably. Was I projecting my lack of friends in real life at the time? Yes. Was that the reason why my parents thought I need therapy? Probably. But that doesn't change the fact that Dragon Ball felt real. Now, Dragon Ball is a product of its time. Its character development and narration didn't age extremely well, but that doesn't undermine the impact and importance that Dragon Ball has on a global scale. With its colorful world and incredible fighting choreography, the relevance Dragon Ball has on our entire culture will always remain unmatched. But what is Dragon Ball about? And I do agree, this section is absolutely useless. But again, I did it for every single one and I have a tiny little OCD. Written and illustrated by the late Akira Toriyama, from 1984 to 1995, Dragon Ball follows the story of Son Goku, a monkey-tailed child that lives in the mountain by himself up until the moment he meets Bulma, a teenage girl looking for the legendary Dragon Balls, mystical artifacts said to be able to summon a all-powerful dragon that will grant any wish. Goku decides to accompany Bulma on her trip, leaving the mountains for the first time of his life, exploring the wide world around him while honing his martial arts skills. The follow-up series is called Dragon Ball Z, in which we find out that Goku is actually an alien, a Saiyan, and then the plot starts to take the distance from collecting Dragon Balls and focuses more on Goku becoming stronger and stronger to be able to protect Earth by the incoming threat. Dragon Ball Z is then technically followed by Dragon Ball Super, in which the story focuses again on Goku getting stronger and stronger as he decides to spar with gods. Then in 2024 we receive the last work of Akira Toriyama, Dragon Ball Daima, in which the story follows Goku and his friends as they quest in the demon realm, after an evil wish turned all of them into children. Technically there is an ulterior, non-canonical chapter called Dragon Ball GT, in which the story basically is the same as Dragon Ball Daima. Goku is turned into a kid by an evil wish, and he has to embark on a journey to find the Dragon Balls. Now, Dragon Ball GT has been receiving piles and piles of since the moment of its release, but thanks to the fact that nobody liked Dragon Ball Super, now it's back on the pedestal. How do we approach Dragon Ball from a criminological perspective? Well, the main issue in Dragon Ball is the fact that the main antagonists always share the same plot and line of action. They want to dominate the world or prove that they are stronger than anybody else, and that will lead to a kind of boring and basic analysis. Because of that, I decide to focus on something a little bit different, on the behavioral development of one of the most rounded and well-written characters that Toriyama ever gave to us, the Prince of the Saiyans, Vegeta. And to analyze and understand Vegeta's behavioral evolution, no theory is better suited than the social learning and modeling theory by Bandura. Based on the work of Gabriel Tard on the concept of imitation, Bandura developed his own theory based on a core principle. Individuals are complex beings. People don't simply act and react to stimuli, but they observe and analyze the situation in which they are, deciding which line of conduct to use according to a rational process. This rational process is based on what Bandura defined as role modeling. Throughout their lives, individuals operate a process of imitation and identification with others, either real, in terms of family, friends or peers, or fictional, in that it is represented in the media, observing and analyzing their behavior and then deciding which line of conduct it's worth to imitate. The interesting aspects of Bandura's theory lies in the fact that this process of imitation doesn't need any kind of specific reinforcement. It just starts, and then the individual, according to the output that he received from the situation, rationally decides if the applied behavior is worth being replicated or it's something that is ineffective and should therefore be abandoned. As from one side, positive reinforcement intended as positive outcomes of the application of a specific behavior can encourage the continuation of said line of conduct and the consequent internalization of said behavior. On the other side, the negative output that you can receive from the insuccess of a specific line of action can lead to behavioral adjustment or even the abandonment of that pattern. The way in which people behave in both criminal or pro-social way depends on the way in which they react in the environment around them, and on the feedback that a specific conduct that they decide to internalize can give to them. None of their code of conduct is set in stone, but their approach to the way in which they interact with society and others will always be fluid and open to changes. How does the social learning and modeling theory apply to the case study of Dragon Ball and specifically of Vegeta? Vegeta thought is one of the most interesting and iconic anime characters of all time, influencing the concept of rival since its first appearance in 1988. Here, to the Saiyan throne, we got introduced to Vegeta as an elitist, prideful and egotistical warrior, strong believer of the superiority of the Saiyan race and of his rightful position at the pinnacle of said society. We understood that Vegeta has been raised since the moment of his birth to be the perfect and highest incarnation of the Saiyan's value of pride and strength. Son of the King Vegeta III, he has been force-fed since childhood with the rhetoric of power and authority, that nothing above strength matters and that the fact that the one with power crush the one without is simply the natural order of the cosmos. It is not in fact a coincidence that the entirety of the Saiyan race is composed by mercenaries that as their main activity conquer and enslave planets to sell them to the best buyer. That was the Saiyan way up until King Vegeta III, it's not my fault all the royalties are named after planet Vegeta, bent the knee to King Cold, accepting in making the entirety of the Saiyan race soldier in King Cold's army. But what is interesting is the fact that the subjugation of King Vegeta III and the Saiyan race to King Cold and later on Freezer's army doesn't really impact Vegeta on a psychological level, because it's simply the pure expression of the ideals that have been ingrained in Vegeta's mind since its birth. The strong will always subjugate the weak one. Both the upbringing from King Vegeta and the tyrannical oppression of King Cold reinforce in Vegeta's mind the idea that power and dominance will always be the end goal of the superior life forms in the universe. Because of that, we can see the application of Bandura's theory in the way in which Vegeta behaved, replicating the oppressive and dominant way of acting of his father and King Cold, becoming a merciless warrior that valued strength over everything else, while he keep looking for greater and greater power, aiming to one day become stronger than Cold and Freezer and become the absolute ruler of the galaxy. The way in which Vegeta has been also receiving praise within the Freezer army represents a form of positive reinforcement, that even though it wasn't needed at the beginning, it reinforced the idea that that line of conduct was vowed to be replicated. But on the other end, Vegeta is one of the few characters in Dragon Ball that undergoes a proper behavioral change, a radical psychological evolution, thanks to his encounter with Goku, a fellow Saiyan that represents its solar opposite. Born in a low-class family, Kakarot grew away from the Saiyan influence. Goku became an altruistic warrior that keeps pursuing greater and greater power, not for his own personal gain, but to defend and protect others. Because of their dichotomy, the clash between Vegeta and Goku is more than a life and death situation. It is a confrontation between two different and opposite systems of belief, a contraposition of diametrical point of views that somehow impacts Vegeta's core. From Vegeta crying before dying to his decision to stick on Earth after Frieza is defeated, we can see how the Prince of Saiyan has been taking in consideration Goku's line of conduct. He stops being a merciless warrior obsessed by the idea of strength and power, and starts on the other end to work on self-improvement, aiming to surpass Kakarot in his own personal way. We even learned that for a brief moment of time, he allowed himself to be open to a romantic relationship with Bulma, even having a son with her, that he technically abandoned for a while, experiencing for the first time a path that doesn't lead to destruction. The positive reinforcement that he received by adopting Goku's line of conduct and his values of protection and altruism start causing in Vegeta an internal struggle that emerges at the moment of Goku's demise. After Goku's sacrifice at the end of Cell Saga, we see Vegeta abandoning fighting, rejecting his very core as a Saiyan warrior. He becomes an husband and a father, reconnecting with Bulma and his son Trunks, deciding to live a mundane lifestyle. Personally, my actual dream, due to the fact that Vegeta doesn't have to work because Bulma is the richest person on Earth. But we can see how the absence of Goku leaves Vegeta completely directionless, and how the lack of a purpose keep fueling his internal struggle between the person he is right now and the idea he has of himself. Who is Vegeta? Is the prideful, merciless prince of the Saiyan, or a father and a stay-at-home husband? Due to the lack of indirect support that Vegeta was receiving from Goku, we can understand why during the Buu saga he decides to accept Babbidi's influence. He decides that the only way to resolve his own struggle is to go back to his comfort zone, to what in his deviated system of belief is his true core self, the cruel, ruthless Saiyan warrior. What is interesting is that from a psychological point of view, we can interpret the decision of Vegeta to accept Babbidi's influence as a cry for help. Vegeta is too proud to openly ask for emotional support. Born and raised in a toxic masculine environment, environment that doesn't even conceive the idea of emotional care, Vegeta was never given the emotional ability to understand his own feelings. Finding in Goku his only support, Vegeta had no other choice than the one to turn back to his old self to be taken seriously. To be clear, I'm not justifying what Vegeta did when he was possessed by Babidi, because he killed a bunch of innocent bystanders just to show how serious he was. And the fact that a couple of days later, he is identified by Porunga as one of the good guys shows how up the moral code is in Dragon Ball. But aside from that, it is not by accident that at the end of Goku's and Vegeta confrontation, the Prince of Saiyan is finally able to find closure and balance, accepting both his Saiyan heritage while rejecting the toxic aspects, and embracing his role of father and husband, decision that leads Vegeta in sacrificing himself in his first act of pure altruism. The evolution of Vegeta's journey allows us to understand the impact and influence of both role models and system of reinforcement. His early cruelty, shaped by the influence of King Vegeta, King Cold, and Frieza, show us how destructive habits can take root when modeled and reinforced in an environment that glorifies dominance and atrocity. On the other hand, the exposure of Vegeta to Goku's moral and ethics demonstrates the transformation that can occur due to the influence of positive role model, capable of challenging the rooted core of people's convention and inspire them throughout processes of observation and imitation. And now you have it. You know a little bit more about criminology than 10 minutes ago. And the next time you are at the gym and you find a Sigma bro stating that, "Oh dude, Vegeta is my role model," you can always go, "Did you know that Vegeta is one of the most complex characters in Dragon Ball, able to shift from a toxic perspective of masculinity toward a healthier representation of man, abandoning its pride and search for power to take care of his family?" But what do you think? Do you think the social learning theory applies well to the case study of Vegeta? Or other theories could have been applied? Please let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this episode, what we have been doing so far, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Moreover, if you want to hear me ranting and screaming on a semi-daily basis, don't forget to check out my social media accounts, Instagram, TikTok, and soon Spotify. Thanks again for joining me today, and up until next time, have a nice rest of the evening.